What's up, everybody? Dead Girl here, coming at you on a Wednesday evening. I hope you guys are having a good week so far. Tonight we have a very special guest with us. He is someone who has not only worked with haunts like Universal's Halloween Horror Nights and Not Scary Farms and Dark Horizons, but has also worked on all kinds of films like Strangeland, Fright Night Part 2, Evil Dead 2, Star Trek. He's been a makeup consultant on Face Off. He's been nominated for an Emmy Award. I have Mr. Michael Burnett.
Hello.
How are you doing this evening, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, of course. Now, we've got all kinds of people joining and hanging out with us, so I want to thank you all for tuning in here tonight. This, just real quick, is going to go up on YouTube later on, so thank you guys that are watching there as well. But I gotta ask, how did you get into special effects makeup? You've been doing it for a couple of years, right?
Yeah, a few years. I've always been a huge fan of science fiction horror movies since I was a little kid. So, when I was back in the old days, I started making Super 8 films.
Oh, nice.
Actually 8mm films first before Super 8. And, and it always was something that was either a monster or a creature or, some kind of alien. And, so I was always building these things. And when I first originally up until really college, I guess, I always thought that I would, my goal was to be a filmmaker, more like get into directing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But everything I did was, was always had a creature or a werewolf or whatever, I was always doing that kind of stuff because I loved that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And when I got into college, I hit it, I grew up in I'm born and raised in California, so
Okay.
I was in the right place and at the right time. The 80s was when makeup effects exploded.
And all the good things were kind of starting to happen around then.
Yeah, the summer that I graduated high school, American Werewolf in London came out in the theaters.
Nice.
And in fact, today's the 19th. So in fact, on the 20th, I think Friday or Saturday is the anniversary of the release of that from 1981. So, so there was a lot of, and it was becoming very popular. Freddy Krueger,
Mm-hmm.
Jason, all those movies were becoming very popular, and they all, relied heavily on makeup effects. So there wasn't a whole lot of people doing it back then, and I was already doing it. So I was going to college. I was a theater major at Cal State Fullerton,
Okay.
and of course Halloween. Halloween's always been my thing. I used to turn my parents' garage into a haunted house.
Nice.
We would drag bodies around the neighborhood. We'd stuff it with a tape recorder, so it'd be screaming, and parents would freak out. And so it's always been my thing. And then you'd mentioned knots. When I was in college, my college instructor, who ran the makeup department, he ran for college, he also ran the makeup for Not Scary Farm.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty cool. So that was a great contact. Knott's was only a few miles from where I went to school. So I met a lot of people, that had been doing this for a while, more theatrically. But everybody was looking for makeup artists, or at least people to work in labs and things.
Right.
And so I, met people and started working. Met a few people who I grew up in Orange County, which is about 60 miles from Hollywood.
Okay.
So. But there were still people there, that lived there that commuted to Hollywood, and so I met a few people that, said, "Hey, we were doing a haunted." I think actually probably the first job I did a TV pilot called. You would have never seen this, but it was called Earthlings, and it was going to be like a sitcom for sort of like a Lost in Space.
Okay.
And we made this big giant rubber monster. But a guy that was working on that, I met him at a haunt that I was building for a local mall, and he saw what I was doing. He goes, "Hey, we need some people." So I came down and started helping him, and just, and it just went from there.
Nice.
I met somebody who worked at Rick Baker's, who also worked on that project with us, and he introduced me after the project was over, and then I started working there, and that's where it really took off.
Wow, you definitely were in the right place at the right time for sure, especially, in California with all those guys around. That had to be, wonderful opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I definitely miss the 80s and 90s from from a job standpoint. I mean, we literally, I get multiple job offers, in a day sometimes, which doesn't happen anymore ever,
Yeah. A lot of people move to the digital age of, blue screens and all that jazz. It's not the same.
No, but it's kind of come back actually. It was worse right after Jurassic Park. That's really kind of where really people went, oh wow. And one of the things in Hollywood, they like to do what is like, what's the hot thing?
Mm-hmm.
Producer goes, oh, CGI. Doesn't matter if it's the right tool. It's the thing gets the catchphrase. So I bid on a movie. It was Maniac Cop, I think, part 2.
Okay.
And the he had this really thick prosthetic, and the producer wanted to use gelatin because he had read something, some current movie had you been using gelatin. I'm like, that really isn't the right thing for this.
Right.
It's going to weigh a ton. And but it was like, had to be gelatin. I ended up passing on that project, but it was like, it was that thing. He heard about gelatin. He read about it in a magazine or whatever.
And that's what he had to have.
Yeah. And it's the same thing like with CGI. It was like everybody wanted to have CGI. Everybody wanted a morph after, you saw morphs like crazy. But, and so that eventually, that definitely took over, then that progressed and took a chunk out of it. But the last few years, it's kind of been coming back. There's a lot of directors who love practical or more of a combination. I mean, there's a lot of things we just physically can't do, and so I think it's a great tool, but I think it's better to enhance than to completely go digital.
I know our house prefers practical, and I know there's a lot of folks who do too, from not only being in that business, but also, on the outside looking in, you can tell a lot of the times when something's practical versus when it's CG'd. And I don't know. I enjoy the old school method a lot more.
Oh yeah. I am definitely with you on that one.
Now, you not only do fabricating, but you also do concept and design work. You do application. You pretty much do a little bit of everything. So what's your favorite part of the process?
That is a hard question to answer. I would say probably on a given day, whatever I'm doing at the moment. It's really what I love about the business about this, this profession is, I don't think, when growing up, when I was in high school, I had a couple, just typical jobs. I worked at an electronics place, making SCR controllers, which is assembly line kind of thing. And that, this block would come over, and then I would screw these things in and solder. And, it was great. I learned a lot about electronics, but boy, it was just mind numbing, for me, because it was the exact same thing. I got really excited, if a different colored block came down the line, because it was like something different to look at. But with what we do, it's such, especially when I first got into it, everybody who was a special makeup effects artist pretty much did everything. You sculpted, molded, cast. Some people were obviously better at certain things than others,
right?
But you did it all. As things grew, people more specialized. But that's just what I love about it. Is it's so I can do a Photoshop rendering or a drawing or a maquette, and then turn it into into an actual ultimately to a thing that's looks alive. Comes to life either as a makeup on somebody's face, an actor brings it to life, or a puppet, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's really hard. But I would have to say, if I had to pick one thing that's my favorite, it would be would probably be the application, because that's, in the painting of it, that's when it comes, of a makeup, because that's when it comes to life.
Yeah.
So
you can actually bring that out, and you get to see it too visually a lot more than just that picture in your head. You're actually bringing it.
Right. And you've got the performer who then, it's great when you work with, luckily most of the people I've worked with were into it.
Yeah.
I've worked with a few that were not, and that is not pleasant.
Oh.
It's like, I remember on Star Trek, I'd be doing some background aliens, and I'd get a person sit down and I'd show them this big giant alien head that was going to go on them, and they're like, well, they're not going to recognize me. I'm like, well, yeah, you're
an alien.
Alien creature. I mean, what did you think we were going to do? I'm sure you're a great actor, but I don't think you can emote that.
Right.
That out of you. We've got to physically do it.
Right.
And but then you've got other people who embrace it. I worked on I worked with Ben Stiller in his early career and did the Ben Stiller show, and
Nice.
he loved makeup.
That's awesome.
So we come in and I'd spend hours gluing on him, and several people. Roddy McDowell, he obviously he had to love makeup. He worked on, he was Cornelius and Planet of the Apes. I got to work with him on a low budget Roger Corman film, and he was awesome because he just this was later in his career, and he'd been doing it for so long, but he still loved it. He still
enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, he was still enthusiastic about it. It was great,
That's
it made
awesome.
it fun. I was enthusiastic to be working on him,
Right.
but having him be that way, it was great.
Oh, I'm sure it made the experience that much more, memorable and pleasurable too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So what is one of the most challenging makeups that you've had to do today, that you would say, out of all the many of things that you have worked on? What was something that you're just like, God, that was a bear?
Challenging as far as like technically pulling it off?
Yes.
Oh wow.
If you want to come back to it, we can come back to it.
All right. Yeah, boy. It's funny because every even when you do a simple prosthetic, a nose that you've always done, I always like to do a test because it's always a little different every time. It's on a different person. Sometimes the paint goes differently on them. On their skin, the makeup goes, so every time, a lot of people say, oh, you've done, 1,000 prosthetics, so it must be really easy. And it's like, well, yeah, that
yes and no,
in a comfort level, but every one of them is always, can always be difficult. So I don't know if I could think of one particular thing that was super challenging makeup wise. Boy, I don't know. Every one of them has its little challenges,
That's a perfect answer. It really is, because you're right. They
Good. All right,
do.
Thank you.
What are and I know you mentioned some people that you've had in your chair that's been very memorable. Do you have any favorite set memories that you could share with us?
Boy, there's so many things that that's one of the fun things is being on set and doing stuff. I remember it was a great feeling to be. We were working on Strangeland with Dee Snider.
Yes.
And we had at the end of the movie, I don't want to give it away for anybody who hasn't seen it, but at the end of the movie, he's hanging in a room and it's all on fire. So, and he burns. So we had a stuntman who was going to do a full burn. So he had to have we had to build this suit for him and a mask, and it had to hold a special breathing apparatus that went in and it came back, and then I think I'm trying to remember exactly how it worked. And I think the rope burns and he falls. So we shot it and didn't really get it on the first take, and he fell. But when he fell, he came down and he bit through the piece and broke it. So we're like, okay, we'll get the other one. And I was like, no, that's our only one. And I'm like,
oh no.
So luckily we were on a location, so we brought this whole we brought this whole mini lab with us, and so Dan Gates, who was the guy that was helping me, we got our stuff out and we rebuilt it for him.
Oh wow!
And we're able, because they were going to wrap for the night. That was going to be it. So we were able. So we were the heroes of the set. So that was pretty cool.
Yay!
And then probably one of the most fun memories I have on set was, did you ever watch Passions? Have you ever seen Passions? It's a soap opera that has some really crazy stuff on it.
I did not.
You're probably a little young for that, maybe.
Oh, well, thank you.
So Passions was a soap opera that ran from 97, I want to say, for how many years did it go? It went up till when I moved, so probably 2007. So probably about 10 or 15 years. I can't remember now.
Okay.
But it was on NBC. But it was this weird. There was a witch, and she had a doll that would come to life. It was Josh Ryan Evans. Did you see? Did you ever see? I'm sure you've seen The Grinch That Stole Christmas.
Yes.
Remember the little, when he was flashbacks and he was Baby Grinch.
Yes.
So that was Josh. Josh played the Baby Grinch.
Okay.
And the young Grinch. And so I had worked with Josh several times on a couple other things. He was probably, I'm trying to think at that point, he was probably, when we started, he was a teenager, but he was the size of, a 3 or 4 year old. And he was perfectly proportioned. A lot of times, some small people, their torso, might be longer, but he was proportioned like a little kid, so he doubled a lot.
Oh, wow.
So he brought me on the project because they needed to make a doll that matched him, and they were trying different things, and it didn't work, and he showed them something that I had made of him, and they go, oh, bring him in. So we did this show, and it went from doing that doll to creating zombies and zombie pirates and demons and it's just all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
So, but anyways, one particular episode, and it was soap opera, which I'd never watched. Soap operas are very weird. When you film a movie, you film the scene, and you'll film the scene several times from different angles and whatnot, depending on how many camera shoot you're doing. And then you move on and you go to the next scene.
Right.
Well, soap operas have multiple storylines going, right, at the same time.
Yep.
And so you go back, and I remember it was so weird. It felt like Groundhog's Day because you go back and you shoot kind of half of the previous scene again when you're doing the next scene because so people can remember where they were, right?
Yeah.
So it always felt like it took me so long. It was so weird. I just felt like, didn't we already film this?
We did this already 3 days ago. Are we done?
Yeah, and it was over and over again. So it was weird. It took me a while to get used to that. But anyway, so when we were in a set, it was Christmas, we were filming Christmas scenes in the summer.
Oh, wow.
By the time Christmas actually happened,
you were done.
Yeah, because I'm on this set of houses and stuff, and it's all dressed up like Christmas, and I've been on for months. And then we would take that off, and then all of a sudden it'd be real Christmas, and I'm like, oh, didn't we just have Christmas? But anyways, so there was a scene with Demon Charity was her name, and they were in a graveyard, and it was like Thriller. A lot of the stuff we did was inspired by, we did things that were inspired by Poltergeist and Wizard of Oz and Pirates of the Caribbean. And in this particular case, it was zombie movies and Thriller. So we did this whole bunch of zombies, and it was all my cast, my crew. My wife was one. She was the zombie bride. And I usually, that was the other thing that was a fun show. I would dress up and play characters as well. In this particular case, we needed somebody to help the guy, so I just played zombie arm. So I had gloves up to here.
Oh, wow.
And I mine were the hands that burst out of the ground. And so anyway, so we had 5 or 6 zombies, and they dug out of the ground like in Thriller, and we did our whole thing. We shot our scene, and I had gone up to the audio booth, and I gave this guy a CD, and I said, hey, when we're done, when they say we're wrapped with the zombies, cue up this spot right here.
Okay.
So he goes, okay. So he put it on. So they're calling rap, and the cameras are starting to move out, and all of a sudden you hear these footsteps coming, and then Thriller came on, and all my guys and Lynn and Gal, there was only one, it was all guys except for one. They all had been practicing, and they broke out into the Thriller dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. And they filmed it. They have it. There's somewhere that's on tape somewhere at NBC. I saw. I think they played it back for us real quick, but I've never seen it since. That was a super fun time. That show was really fun.
I'll have to go back and see if I can't find it and check it out.
It's hard. You can find clips, but soap operas don't really rerun. There was a soap opera channel for a short time, and they were gonna rerun it. They did rerun it for a while, but that channel didn't last. It was kind of sad. But and today I just kind of acknowledge. Hate to to bring it down, but that was one of my favorite shows to work on, and I got news today that a producer who became a friend of mine. We both shared love of Batman, and we're like the same age, so we grew up watching the same TV shows, Star Trek, Lost in Space, all that stuff.
Nice.
He passed away today.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, yeah, that was like, and that was a shock thing, but Passions has I reached out to several Passions people today because that we were all kind of talking, and that was a sad thing, but he loved that show. I mean, it was one of the few shows that I worked on where so many people stayed in touch. Because it was definitely had a very family feel.
That's nice though, when you can actually stay in contact with people after you're done. It's not a thing that happens a lot, so that's awesome, and I'm so sorry for your loss. That sucks.
Yeah, that was definitely a weird shock today, but I didn't mean to.
That's okay. I bet my heart hurts for you. I'm sorry.
No, it's me. We're talking Passions, and then I just thought of that. So anyway, all right. Let's go on to something more.
All right. How about some fun stuff? Now, you, along with creating mini monsters, you actually have taught some classes too. In fact, you taught some classes with us for the past couple of years at Spooky Empire. You've done some life casting classes and some shrunken heads and some eyeballs and all different things, which are fantastic. And I've kind of poked my head in a few times while you've done those. What are some of the things that you teach that you really enjoy doing?
Well, I like doing the whole thing. Like, when I got into this, it was really hard to find information. There was no internet. There was just the Pony Express and the Telegraph. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. But there was, we learned everything from magazines. I mean, there was Famous Monsters and Fangoria, which has been re-released.
Yep.
It's back out again. Gore Zone. I think I said Famous Monsters. Starlog. Yes. Boy, there was just a ton of them. Everything was from magazines. Cinefantastique was a great one. Cinefex is an awesome one. The older issues, go back and look at if you love this stuff in practical, go back and look at the older issues of Cinefex. That was an awesome magazine. So I called, I tried to get a hold of people in the industry and learn this stuff, and nobody wanted to share it.
Right. It was like coveted secrets almost with some of them.
Except for this guy in New York named Dick Smith, who was an amazing. In fact, that's him. I don't know. I got a little bit of a delay, but that's him right there.
Oh wow!
And his hand.
That's cool.
He lost his finger in an accident, and they took out his ring finger, and they took out the whole bone. So his hand looks. Normally if somebody loses a finger, it has sort of a gap.
Yeah.
His hand looks proportional, like it should have three fingers, so it kind of has, has a Mickey Mouse thing. But that's what I think he called it. But that's a cast of his hand. But anyway, so Dick Smith was really generous with his information. He shared his formulas, even in one of the I forget. Well, there was one called Cinefex, if you see Super 8, the movie Super 8, they talk about Cinefix magazine.
Yes.
That movie takes place in the time when I was doing that kind of stuff, like, same.
Okay.
But so when I first got into this, let me grab this really quick.
Yeah. While you're grabbing, I've got quite a few people chiming in the chat about, Cinefix. A couple people still collect them. That's awesome.
So I did, nobody was, nobody, there wasn't anything out there. So I did the art, so I can do it without the glare.
There, almost had it. Right there. Right there's good.
Right. That's the art of special makeup effect. This is, for you youngsters, this is a VHS tape. Still sealed.
Now, is that available in a Today format, or do you have to find a VCR?
No, you know what? If you check out, this is now shameless plug time.
Do it.
If you follow me on Instagram, MVPFX, and there will be, hopefully sooner than later, some news about it. But I did a series of these videos. This is three of them. So this is the first one, basic makeup, second one, prosthetic makeup, and third one, mechanical mask.
Nice.
And so, I just love sharing it with people who are enthusiastic about it. Oh, okay, let me see if I can get, the plastic is kind of messing this up. You can see this is the cool look in the 80s.
Look at that stash.
Look at that.
And that hair. Oh, it's fantastic.
I like to call that my porn stash.
It is very Ron Jeremy-ish.
Okay. All right. I actually worked on a movie with him, but we'll save that story for another time.
We'll skip that one for part 2. We'll do a part 2 and we'll get into all that.
All right.
No, that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that that'll be your how-to videos will be available in more recent formats.
Yeah, but I think that's really how we met and first got interacting. Was doing because you and JD were running the classes at Spooky Empire, which has turned out. I mean, that's one of the bummers of this year. We're not going to get to do those, but we love doing those because people who come in, and we've done a variety of classes. I like doing them all. Again, it's like I was saying before. The thing I like about this business is it's always something different.
Yeah.
And even if you're, when I had my shop in California, we did a variety of things because movies will, there are periods of time where you're not going to be working on a movie. TV,
right.
It's not as much as it now as it was then, but there was definitely seasons. It's still that way, but it's not as cut and dry as it used to be because with all the streaming services now, there's multiple productions going on. But there would be lulls, in between projects. So I started doing stuff we made licensed pieces. We did like a full-size Darth Vader and
nice.
A life-size Freddy Krueger, and and it was all based on movie molds and stuff. And so and that was that was assembly line, but it's assembly line on a cool thing, but we would switch around. We'd do Darth Vader for a while, then do Freddy Krueger. It wasn't just monotonous. Right. But so it's the same thing with teaching. I love covering all the bases.
That's awesome. Well, we would love to have you back. We do plan on doing it again once it's safe and Spooky's back and running. We'll be doing that again in October. So if you have time and would love to, we'd love to have you guys. You guys you and the wife are amazing.
Yes. Yes, my wife is very good. She's a little more shy than I am. But once we get going, she'll get going as well. But she's a really great painter and sculptor, and she loves to share her knowledge as well. So so we're definitely gonna miss doing that this year.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll make up for it for sure.
Okay.
Now you've worked on quite a few movies, and I know we were talking a little bit before, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about your experience with Dee Snider, because you not only worked with him on Strangeland, but you also worked with him on a music video that he did, "Be Cruel to Your School."
Yes, that was. I had never actually. Well, that was the only time I knew Tom Savini. I met him. I think I connected with him through Dick Smith. Tom Savini, for those of you who don't know, and I doubt there's many, but Tom he did the original Friday the 13th movie and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Lots.
But he's a Pittsburgh. He did and the thing that for me, one of my favorite movies, Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
So, yeah, so he did all the makeup effects on that, and I remember going to see that movie in the theater when it first came out, and I'm just like, wow, what is this stuff?
This is great.
And so, yeah, and so I got to meet him, and he was a bit of a celebrity at that point because of the the movies were popular.
Yeah.
So he'd come to L.A. He's based out of Pittsburgh,
Yes.
but he would come to L.A. So we met and hung out, and would share stuff and whatnot. And so he called me up and said, and some other guys that I was working with, I was actually, I think I was working on Harry and the Hendersons, who is right
back behind you there.
Yeah, wrong.
There you go.
Please tell me. There he is. And said, hey, we're going to shoot this video with Alice Cooper and Twisted Sister. We got to make some zombies. You guys want to come do it? And we're like, no, well, of course we do. I mean,
I'm not going to say no.
Yeah. So we, and he had just finished on Day of the Dead.
Ah.
So he brought this huge box of old leftover appliances from Day of the Dead, and they got all these, extras to come in, and it was, I want to say it was either November or December. Because school was actually, it was just the weekend. So, but it was right after Halloween, and and so I did not know Dee but Dee, that's the other thing. So Dee is a huge horror fan.
Yes,
and always has been, and he's a big fan of Tom Savini. So he's the one that said we want to do this, and we want Tom Savini to come in. So anyway, so it was a 2-day shoot, and we did all the monsters, and then. One of the other makeup artists, Norma Cabrera, and we had both done these zombie things for Halloween.
Yeah.
And hey, we talked to the production, said, after we make up, these people, can we get into makeup and be in the video? And he said, they said, sure, more zombies that we don't have to pay extra for, bring them on.
Even better.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so so we dressed up. So I'm a featured zombie. If you watch. I'm really the only one that's in a suit because I had made this distress suit kind of a la Thriller. I call myself the principal, of the high school. So if you Google it, you can watch it. It's on YouTube. Now it was funny because that was an MTV thing. Yes. Back in those days, the videos were a really big deal, but MTV would not show it because it was too gory.
Ah.
And you watch now, it's very cartoony, and that was the intention. So it was really funny to think that you watch this and you go, really, that was too gory.
I got some pictures too as you're talking about. Let's just pop some of these up here real quick to show everybody.
So, so that's a really young me with short hair, and those are 3 of the zombies that I did. We each had, I think, 4 or 5 zombies. Those were 3 of my main ones, and then so we did those both days. Oh, and there's a funny story from that. So. Tom was doing makeup too, and it was a long shoot. I mean, we had to shoot Saturday and Sunday because this high school was only while it was closed, and then they had to clean it all up for the kids, on Monday. So Tom was doing this one girl, and I think she was actually wearing a similar appliance to the guy that's on the saxophone there.
Okay.
It had these really big swollen lips, and so he talked her into wearing the makeup home and sleeping in it and coming back the next day.
Wow.
Just to save time. And she did. She came back. She had pillow fuzz stuck to her face and had to be touched up. But it was like that girl wore that makeup for she must have worn it for 36 hours straight.
Oh, she was a trooper, and I got some more.
Yeah.
Pictures there too.
All right, well, there's Dee, and so it was a duo thing with Alice Cooper, and then that's the prosthetic I sculpted for my Halloween makeup,
Yeah,
on
and
my
I got
phone.
pictures of that one too, I think. Let's pop that up. There you are.
And there, yeah, and that's me with the. I made some, rotten hand gloves, and then I got, that's a oversized suit I got at a thrift store and just distressed it out. And Thriller. This was right after Thriller, just a few years after Thriller came out. That's when I started at Rick's Age. Thriller had just been out maybe 6 months, and so that was very, very popular. So that year, so we did that.
Zombies were huge at that point
Oh yeah,
in time.
they still are. I still love zombies.
Oh yeah. I mean, I watch pretty much every zombie movie that comes out, even the really crappy ones. I'm like, it's zombies. I gotta give it a go. And I know. So after that, you ended up working on Strangeland with Dee. How did that happen? Was it that just a thing where he was like, he liked your work on the music video and he wanted to bring you in to do other things too?
Yeah, well, I didn't know. I mean, like Dee and I met him when we filmed, but but we didn't know each other at that point.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember. So they were looking for somebody to do the effects. They interviewed several people, and again at that point there were more people doing it, but I had a fairly decent sized shop. And I think that one of the producers I had worked with before,
okay.
So they called me in, and they liked my ideas and what I wanted to do, and so I ended up getting booked on the gig, which was cool. So and since then I still am friends with Dee. We got to know each other pretty well, and I think too that probably helped when I came in for the interview and I showed him and go, oh hey, and by the way, I was in your video. That was a great tie-in. So.
There's a way to slide it in, like we've met before.
Yeah. But he's a super nice guy. I mean, he made it through. He's still married. He's been married for gosh, I don't know how long now. He's not the typical rock star.
Right.
He's a family guy and loves horror. So it's been it was a lot of fun working on that movie with him.
Nice. And I got some pictures here, too, just to show some of the folks some of the fun. So we've got these ones with some...
Yeah, that was one of his victims. That's where Captain Howdy is his character, and this girl, she had a kind of a he did, his intention wasn't to kill him, but she died due to a health condition she had, and then he dumped the body, so that's been in the water in a trunk. So that's why it's kind of bloated.
No, I love it. They're both excellent, and I think I've got some other ones of another younger you and Dee there with all his piercings.
Yeah. So half his body was tattooed and half of it was pierced, and so all of his septum is actually pierced, but it's very small piercing. And then I had a special gauge made with so it looked like it was a bigger piercing in his septum, and then all the rest, like that, the ear is, it's those, we used gelatin for that because it was all translucent. So those, he's got, I forgot how many appliances now, but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's 6. A lot.
It was a bunch, yeah. So.
Wow.
Those are all, yeah, so that was fun. And he, Dee was really into it again. And that makeup took a long time, especially the first time we did it.
Oh, I bet.
It was trying to do all those tattoos, and that luckily the tattoos stayed on pretty well. So even he would be careful when he showered. So we had to do more just touching him up than having to totally redo them.
Oh, that had to make it so much easier.
Oh, it definitely did.
I couldn't imagine having to go back and try to match that up perfectly.
No.
Figure that continuity out.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's awesome stuff. Strangeland is a fantastic movie. A lot of folks enjoy it. I enjoy it as well. Everything on it's phenomenal, and definitely, great job, and thank you for bringing that to life.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Dee went through there was supposed to be a sequel, but the company that produced it had a whole bunch of legal issues, and it took years and years. It was tied up in the courts, and he finally got the rights back, but it had gone so long, it just has never gelled. I mean, I know he'd still like to do it, but it's been so many years. Who knows if that'll happen?
Yeah, it's definitely been a long time since
Yeah.
that first one came out. Because I remember hearing that they were going to do a sequel to it, but I didn't really know what happened. So that
Yeah, no, we have a script. I designed the makeup, the bunch of characters and stuff, and then it just first it was just the legal battle,
yeah.
over the rights to it, and then after that it was, the movie it did a theatrical release, but you lose that momentum very quickly.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was at least somewhere between 8 and 10 years by the time it took him to get the rights back. It was a long time.
Wow. Yeah, that's a while. Jeez.
Yeah.
We've got some people showing some love for both the movie and your T-shirt.
Svengoolie, yes.
Yes, and you got to meet him. You were on the show too, weren't you?
Yeah, I've made some stuff for him. He has a character called Tombstone that's a talking skull, and I updated it. I made it a radio-controlled skull for him, and I was on the show talked about showed him some life casting. He did an interview on the show one time, and I stay in touch with him. I go to Chicago a few times a year usually, although not this year. But he's a great guy. He's been on for over 30 years, and just keeps the love for horror movies alive. It's the cheesy, B movies, and but he also the horror, the classics. They do show the Universal classics.
Yes.
But so it's a mix. But I love all of them, and even the cheesy ones are fun, But he does cool fun little wraparounds and he knows a lot. Like he'll tell you about all the actors and like what other movies they were in, and even the background, the more of the bit players,
mm-hmm.
and it's just fun. It's a fun, he's on Saturday nights on every Saturday night on MeTV. If anybody wants to check him out.
And for those of you that aren't familiar with Svengoolie, I do have this lovely picture of you and him.
There's
here.
Sven. And he even has his own action figure. He gave me one when I was there on set. So.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So, but he's been around. Sven, Rich Koz, who plays Sven, he is actually the second Sven. The original Sven only was on for a little bit, and then Rich was called the son of Svengoolie, and then they went off the air again for a little bit, and then he came back on again, and has been going strong ever since, and he is now Svengoolie, and has been for many years.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I haven't, like I said, I've seen some small clips of it through like YouTube and other channels, but we don't get MeTV, so I'll have to figure that out because I would like to check him out. We watch a lot of Joe Bob Briggs because he's still doing on Shudder. He does The Last Drive-In, so we still watch him for the most part. But there aren't a whole lot of horror hosts that are still going,
No, not nationally for sure. I mean, he's the only one, and so if you're not in an area that has one, it's hard to catch it.
It definitely is. But God, you've done so many things, and between movies and TV, and you've also done a lot in the Holland industry. Like we said, before you've worked with Not Scary. You've also worked with Universal Studios. You worked with them for their Halloween events for what, like 25 years or something like that?
Yeah, I started before Halloween Horror Nights because we did a few events. They weren't really like ticketed events. We did some special events. Okay. We did They were like contest things that were involved with Halloween. Like we did a thing with Alice Cooper that was a concert. I'm trying to remember what product it was, but it was a big Halloween thing. They had a whole bunch of radio personalities from around the country come in. We made them all up. We did all the scary decorations. We shot it on the soundstage at Universal. I mean, we didn't shoot it, but we had the party. It was a kind of a party, and on the soundstage where they shot Phantom of the Opera, it still actually had at the time. Sadly, it's been torn down the last couple of years, but it stood for so long, and it had a big piece of the original Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera set still in there.
Oh wow!
And so then they did a few other in Hollywood. This is before Florida was even had broken ground yet.
Yeah.
They did a few other events, Halloween kind of things, but not to the size of Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah.
And then I did when Halloween Horror Night started in California, and they had a mishap and kind of put it on hold for a year or so, and then it started up in Florida, where obviously here it's really picked up and it's become this huge event. So yeah, between all those events, I've done 25, probably somewhere in that range, years of stuff with Universal. So wow. I did when Halloween Horror Nights came back. It was in '97 in California, and so we did 4 years, and then they paused for a couple of years, and that's when I moved here. So but it was fun because I don't think they were doing IP houses in Florida at that time, but we started doing IP houses right away. We did the wrestling. Trying to think what we did stuff with. It wasn't like we did stuff with Clive Barker, which was really cool. I got to go to sit down and design stuff with him. That was really cool. And we did, and then House of Rob Zombie's original, the first when House of a Thousand Corpses. Yes. We did a haunted house for that, and that would have been like 98, 99.
Oh wow!
It was a couple of years. We did a house back then. It was an IP house, and it was funny because back then Rob Zombie did an interview with somebody on his radio or something, and said something that was like, no, we want to really mess up the kids with this movie. And of course that, everybody freaked out. So they said, oh, no, this isn't House of a Thousand Corpses. This is Rob Zombie's thing. And I'm like, no, it's House of a Thousand
Corpses.
Yeah. But that was fun. He was really cool to work with. Again, another one of those guys that's a super huge horror fan, loves horror movies, and he was fun to hang out with.
That's awesome. And you've done a lot of work with Universal. I know you've done some of the makeup for some of the icons. You've done let's see here. I've got Bloody Mary on the left, and then from Horror Nights 25, you redesigned Jack's makeup, correct?
Yeah, actually the first time was for on Jack. Jack was originally done Kim Grommel, who was one of the scenic artists at Universal, he drew the original concept for Jack back before, that was like, I want to say like 2000. That was when I was still in California, and they did the first version of Jack, and then we redesigned him with Carnival of Carnage. Yes. And he came back as the ringmaster. So that was the first time I got to redo his makeup. And then this time for the 25th, where when Jack's back, and that was that's his current look as of now, unless they decide to update him again. And Bloody Mary was fun too. That was a cool one to do. That's those pictures are from the commercial shoot.
Oh, nice. Now, what's that process like when you're coming up with an icon makeup? Is that something that you have to sit down with a group of people and say, okay, this is what I think? What's that process like?
It varies from the writers and the show directors, they come up with all this backstory, and they'll write a verbal description of how they see it. And so I would read that, and then, like for Bloody Mary, she's coming through the mirror. So she has all these cuts from cutting on the mirror, and then Jack I wanted to make him, more like the clown makeup has just become part of his skin, so it's been so long since, and his nose, if you notice, his nose is much more wrinkled and textured. Mm-hmm. It's become part of him. He's worn it for so long. So I try to take what they write in the backstory and then try to incorporate it and a lot of people don't know, but I think might not know those details, but I think the details show.
Oh, yeah.
It makes it, instead of just going, oh, well, just stick a nose on him. It's like, well, this nose is this way for this particular reason. So it gives it just just works better. I think when you've got a reason for the design choices,
it gives it more character, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Very. And then you've also done, you've done a lot of them. I've got some other pictures here that I wanted to show too of Lady Luck's makeup, and this is a couple of different. Well, her first stage to the left there, right? That's
a rough concept. That really wasn't the final. That was the first design concept that I did before we knew who was going to play her and everything. And so that was the first. And obviously her teeth changed and a few things were different. But that was just an early design concept. You can see like the veining kind of stayed with it. She didn't go greenish. That has, she ended up with a green hue there. We kept her flesh tone. So, there were probably, I don't know, half a dozen design concepts that I did. And that was the very first one. And then that's her, I think both those are the same prosthetics. She had she had 3 or 4 prosthetics, some components, and then teeth, and a couple different sets of teeth. It's because she transforms really quickly. They didn't end up doing it the way we had originally. That's the other thing too. When you're shooting something like this, you have these great ideas, you shoot them, and then it doesn't always work for what for when it all comes together. Right. So that was one of those cases where the transformation wasn't didn't become as big of a deal as they originally wanted it. We shot it, and then they when they edited it still is a transformation, but kind of went a different way with it. But you still see, I think, at least 2 or 3 of the stages when she transforms.
Oh yeah, and it's parts of that kind of carry through, like you said, the veining. I like that was kept for her, and she was always a very different type of icon because she had the 2 faces.
Right.
I totally dig her. Out of the ones that you've worked on, what's your personal favorite icon for Horror Nights?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, Jack is, I have to say probably Jack is, and that is, because of James Keaton. He's one of those guys we're talking about. He just loves getting into character, and he just brings Jack to life. And he'll let us. He wants that makeup right up under his eyes. He doesn't want to see any flesh going. He's like, get it in there, and he just brings. He gets so into it, and just totally becomes a character, and adds his own twisted sense, of horror comedy and stuff to it. And so I would have to say Jack.
Nice.
Not only is he a fun character to do, visually and as a makeup, but James just makes him such a fun. It's like Freddy Krueger,
Yeah.
It's like Freddy Krueger as a clown, He's got that. He's just got these one-liners, and he's quick, and he's just a fun, scary character.
I've never heard him described as a Freddy Krueger-ish character. It's accurate. He's got that popularity. Everybody who's a Horror Nights fan knows Jack. Out of all the icons, he's been the one that everybody's known. And, he's been featured the most, too, right?
Oh, yeah. I think the first year I was there, we did the older version of Jack as just, sort of a character in the park. He wasn't featured like he was in these other ones, but yeah, Jack has been back much more than any of the other ones. And then the ringmaster, he became the lead icon at that point.
Yeah.
And you can see it with the merchandise and everything else. He's definitely the most popular.
Oh yeah, he's the most predominant, that's for sure. And then of course, with this year, I know Universal was releasing some of their merch, so they've got storytellers on there, the directors on there, the caretakers on there. They even had Eddie on there, and I was like, that's really cool, to feature some of those guys.
Yeah.
But I was a little sad because there wasn't much love for Terror Queen or Chance even. I was like, what happened to the ladies?
Yeah, that's true. I noticed that they, and Chance was very popular. So
yeah,
I'm not sure. Maybe there's more. They keep releasing new stuff, so maybe we'll see some more coming out. Hopefully.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now you guys, not only with the makeups, you've also done a lot of props and things for Universal for Halloween Horror Nights as well. And I know I've got, and if you don't mind, I would like to show a clip of one of the ones that we've got.
Oh, sure.
Which is from one of my favorite houses, and I'm sure when you guys see this, you'll know which one it is. Let's get the sound on for you. Now, this is probably one of my favorite houses, at least from that year with Horror Nights, was that American Werewolf in London. And I know we spoke before that this was one of the earlier test puppets, right?
This was the very first test.
Wow.
Just sort of a proof of concept. The kind of powers that be really wanted, were pushing to make this a costume. They wanted to have a person in a costume. And although that's what they did in the movie, but the way it was shot and stuff, you can do different things in a movie. It's very different than doing it live in person, right. With somebody who has to cycle out every 30 or 40 minutes. Yeah. And so I pushed for doing the puppets. And I think up until that test, I don't think people thought it was going to work. And then after that, I think we did puppets every year, and I think they've done puppets every year since of some kind.
Yeah.
Because they were so popular. So yeah, that was just a bad skin on just a quick set of teeth with the fur not trimmed, or you just kind of pinned in place, just so you could see how fast and how much movement it could do.
Yeah.
And that is definitely my favorite house. We did it twice. The first year, I think the puppets were better the second time we did it. Yeah. But I think because it was it didn't quite have the same fan love, I think, that it did the first year. It rated as like the #1 house, and it still rates really high as far as I know.
Oh yeah.
The first year, and it was mine because that's one of the movies. Like I said, I got. When I graduated from high school, that's when that movie came out, and that was sort of, solidified what I started wanting to do.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a fun one to do for me.
That's awesome. It's definitely one of my favorite movies and one of my all-time favorite houses. Everything, every little detail in that house was like damn near perfect.
Well, thanks. Yeah, everybody, the team at Universal everybody pulled together, and I think there were a lot of other fans besides myself, so everybody wanted it to be, really good.
Yeah. Now, were you
we get John Landis there?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he came and he was, he had to sign off on everything. So.
Oh, nice. Was it easy or difficult to get his okay on things?
I mean, I knew him. I'd worked with him in LA, so we'd worked on a few things. But the producers were the ones that had to deal with him on that. I think it went okay. He seemed to like everything. Once he, the haunted house concept was weird to him at the beginning, but then once he saw what we were doing, then he seemed to be good with it. And then he kind of embraced it after that. Good.
All right. Good. That makes me happy. Then we'll say it was easy, just for argument's sake. Okay. Now, I know we talked before, you had some stuff that you wanted to do some giveaways on, right?
I do, and when we talk, but I'm going to have to figure out some different questions because we didn't we didn't cover everything.
Oh, I know. Well, like, time flies by so fast when you have a good conversation and good fun. It's hard to fill it all in. Like I said, we'll have to do a part 2 for sure.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, what I have, I was digging through some of my boxes, and I know hopefully we've got some Halloween Horror Nights fans on here. So one of the things that we did, and you'd mentioned the Terror Queen, and that year we did these things where each area was a land, and the characters would get these tattoos. And so these are temporary tattoos that were left over. I found a little bag of them in one of my boxes. So the first person in the comments that answers the correct... Oh, and then I also have, from Lady Luck, these are these cards that we sent out as part of a promotional thing. I had a few of these left.
Oh,
so
nice.
They're like playing cards. And then one of them was the invite to the media. Yeah. So there's not very many of these cards floating around. So the first person who answers the question of what was the character that I played in Be Cruel to Your School? What did we call him? See if somebody was paying attention. So,
all right.
Hope. So the first person who says that, and afterwards, if you can get their address, I'll mail them to them.
Definitely. So, all right, in the chat, who's paying attention here?
I can't see it, so I don't know.
So we're trying to...
All right, well, let me...
Ken Stricker got it. I believe.
What did he say?
He said the principal.
Yes, that is correct.
All
right.
Ken, I'm going to have to get your address.
Yeah, don't send it private message.
I'll message you later.
Trying to get you. Okay, so I've got a few more. So I got another set. So three of these plus, 4 of these tattoos plus 3 cards. So, and this will be easy because I think we just talked about it. So what was my favorite haunted house that I worked on at Halloween Horror Nights? Who can get it?
That's a good one. Lisa
Amden-Haven. Hey, Lisa. Lisa was my, she ran my office when we had a shop in California.
Oh,
so, hello, Lisa. So,
all right.
See it over here on the side.
So, Michael Burnett's favorite house. Are you taking, do you want him to spell it out? I got people throwing initials.
No, that's fine. That's how I do it. I saw that.
All right, that's Brian Sage says
right.
American Werewolf in London.
Okay.
All right, Brian, great job.
I got one more set, but now I gotta think because I came up with these questions based on stuff we were going to talk about and we didn't cover some of it. So now I got to think of something that we talked about. And where was it? Okay. All right, here we go. So on Passions, what song did the this is going to be really easy. Okay. On Passions, what song did the zombies break out into dance when we wrapped the shoot?
Let's see. I wish I had Jeopardy music. I would play it right now.
I know. You got to wait for that little bit of delay, I guess, right?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's like really delaying them. I have it up on another window.
Oh, we got Beck Lester Beam got it.
Yep. Awesome. Okay.
Lester Beam.
All right, and let me think.
Winner number 3. So the 3 of you, Ken Stricker, Brian Sage, and Beck Lester Beam, shoot me a message at Horror Happenings, give me your address, and we'll get that stuff out to you.
All right, so I'm going to ask a question. This is going to be for the true Halloween Horror Nights fans because we didn't talk about it. So you know this answer.
I love the trivia.
So, all right, so here we go.
Wait, what's the prize, though?
The prize is a Sam lollipop. Now, this isn't just your typical, you can buy these. This particular one is out of the mold that were used for the Sams during Halloween Horror Nights.
Ooh.
So this is not like, from Spirit Halloween. This is a custom one. This is before you could get the really good ones, when we made this.
Was that from the house or from the scare zone? I gotta ask.
The scare zone was first. Well, they actually used the characters in both.
Yes.
But the scare zone was first. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna ask. Okay. This isn't okay. So we'll see if if it's too hard, then I'll switch it. So there were Sam's actual like Sam figures when you walk through the scare zone. How many Sams were in the scare zone?
Ooh, that's
this would be a time for that. This would be a perfect time for that.
Do do do
Yeah.
do do do.
Yes.
How many Sams were in the trick or treat scare zone at Halloween Horror Nights?
All right.
All right.
See.
We got.
People are gonna just start.
Three.
Nope. That's a good guess, but it is not correct.
I have 3, 5, 2.
Okay. Who's 5? Who said 5?
DJ Palumbo. She says 5.
5 is correct.
Nice. All right, DJ.
But we actually made 6 of them. But when it was all said and done, there was not a place for that 6th one. So there were only 5 that were actually used in the scare zone.
Oh.
So you are going to get this official. That's not official, but this.
The official unofficial.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right.
All right. So I have Ken Stricker, Brian Sage, Beck Lester Beam, and DJ Palumbo. All of you guys shoot me a message on Horror Happenings with the Dead Girl. Give me your address, and I'll get that over to Michael Burnett, and we'll get that stuff out to you guys.
Very good.
So yeah, that's awesome. Good job, girl. Way to go, everybody. I hope you guys enjoy your goodies. Michael Burnett, thank you so much for hanging out and spending your...
This was a lot of fun. That was a quick hour. It went very fast.
It went by too fast, I think. We'll have to do this again.
Okay, we can do a part 2 sometime.
Yes, definitely. When I know now things are kind of slowed down, so hopefully we'll have to figure that out before things pick back up again for sure.
All right, cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you to everybody that's in the chat and that hung out with us this evening. I appreciate you guys watching. And if anybody is looking for you, I know you've got your Instagram page, right? So if you guys want to give Mike a follow on Instagram, what's your Instagram? Is it the MBPFX at...
MBPFX, just MBPFX.
Okay.
Or at MBPFX.
Give him a follow there. Is there anything that you want to plug or anything real quick?
Well, I've got some potential Halloween stuff going on, but it's not 100%. I'm not able to work on that. Talk about that yet.
Okay.
So Halloween. But Halloween is not dead. Please. Yes. You might not be able to go to a haunted house, but you can still. Halloween's on a Saturday this year. Go out and at least, have fun with your, family, and please enjoy Halloween. I know we are going to do that.
Yes, definitely. And it's a full moon and the clocks go back. Yeah. It's a trifecta happening. It
is. So, wish it was, not in 2020, but, we'll get through it. And Halloween, is going to help us do that. So.
Definitely.
So anyway, thanks guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and well, hopefully we can do this again because I had a lot of other stuff we can talk about in the show.
I know. Yes. Part 2 for sure. We'll figure out a date and a time, and we'll do a round 2 for sure.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks again, you guys, for watching. For those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for watching the replay. And Mr. Burnett, thank you as always. And don't go anywhere, hang out for just a second. But for the rest of you boys and girls, make sure that you keep it spooky.